Huey Long grew up on the poorest part of Louisiana. He came from a large, comfortable family in a small knit community.
His home provided him with a sense of security, faith, and education, which helped him become so successful.
Meanwhile, he was sadly aware that many of his poor friends and neighbors don't have the same opportunity as him.
From an early age, it was evident that Huey Long was one of a kind, a bright, creative, and determined child who would soon grow up to be one of the most famous and courageous public figure ever produced by the state of Louisiana.
Childhood. Huey Long Jr. was born on August 30th, 1893 in Winfield, a small community in the piney woods of north central Louisiana. He was the seventh of 9 surviving children born to Caledonia Teason Long and Huey Pierce Long, Sir, a livestock farmer.
The Longs were fairly well of the bystanders of the Wynn Parish, one of the poorest parishes in a very poor state. Most frontier families lived in harsh poverty, surviving on what they cultivated with little opportunity for leisure. Surviving on what they cultivated with little opportunity for leisure, education, or cultural growth. Neighbors relied on one another for their day-to needs.
Small for his age, he was not like the other boys in his community, who entertained themselves with outdoor activities like hunting and fishing. He disliked farm work and loved to read books, which were scarce in his community. He was very curious and determined to understand how things worked. When a train rolled into Winfield, it was common for Huey to crawl underneath it to get a closer look, delaying his departure until someone pulled him out.
When it came to work, he preferred anything other than farm work. He took a variety of odd jobs like delivering baked goods and setting newspaper types, but sales work was his favorite.
Remembered as a pestilence by one observer, Huey freely interrupted checkers games to tell grown men how to play their next move. His parents rarely scolded him for his audacity and encouraged this type of behavior and competition among their children.
His parents were well educated than most, and they stressed the importance of education to all their children. The Longs were also a deeply religious family, studying the Bible daily, attending church twice a week, and never missing a gospel revival.
Huey had a brilliant mind and photographic memory. He also overcame obstacles that prevented most children from getting an education.
Huey's mother, Caledonia, was determined that her 9 children be well educated to achieve their fullest potential. There was no public school in Winfield, so she homeschooled her children until education was available to them. They mainly learned from the Bible. The other older siblings would teach the younger ones to help out their mother.
For a few years, Huey's father and some neighbors pooled their money to hire a teacher to conduct subscription school.
In 1903, at age 11, Huey started 4th grade in public school. Far ahead of his class, he became very bored. He convinced his teacher to let him stay. In 1910, after completing the 11th and final grade of school, a 12th grade was added as a requirement to graduation. Huey made a petition against the additional year and was expelled. Consequently, Long never officially graduated high school, but he ended up getting his diploma.
He became a traveling salesman. At age 17, he began touring the South for various companies, selling everything from cooking oil to patent medicines.
Although he was successful at his craft, the life of a traveling salesman was not easy. Steady jobs were hard to come by, and sometimes his employers ran out of business due to a crippling national economy. On several occasions, Huey was forced to sell all of his possessions. Sometimes he had to sleep on park benches.
Huey met Rose McConnell at a baking contest. He married Rose in 1913, and they ended up having 3 children, a daughter named Rose, and 2 sons, Russell and Palmer.
Huey Long was elected governor of Louisiana in 1920. He launched a program to build the state's infrastructure and provide education and economic opportunities. After a failed attempt by his opponents to remove him from office, Huey consolidated his power in the state, becoming known as the Kingfish.
Upon his election, Huey transformed the state administration, putting supporters in every level of government. He gained loyalty by giving people a chance to work in his administration, and soon became a common practice for average citizens to approach him for a job, college scholarship, or any other type of assistance.
He pushed a number of bills through the legislature to fulfill his campaign promises, including a free textbook program for school children, night courses for adult literacy, and piping natural gas to New Orleans. He also launched a massive building program of roads, bridges, hospitals, and schools.
Of Louisiana State University. He expanded the campus, tripled enrollment, and built LSU into one of the best schools in the South and the 11th largest state university in the country. Huey lowered tuition. He also established the LSU Medical School to meet the state's desperate need for new doctors. He frequently attended LSU football games, giving locker room pep talks to players and advice for coaches. And he even composed the LSU fight song Touchdown for LSU, which is still played before every football game to this day.
With the state's major newspapers financed by his opposition in 1930, Huey founded his own newspaper and publicized his own achievements. After impeachment, Huey received many death threats. His New Orleans home was the target of a drive-by shooting and several arson attempts. Fearing for his life and the safety of his family, he surrounded himself with armed bodyguards.
In 1930, Huey Long ran for the U.S. Senate, characterizing the race as a referendum on his policies to help his position as governor. He won easily, but left the Senate seat vacant until he could install a loyal successor to continue his share of wealth movement, which threatened the Democratic support from the re-election of President Franklin Roosevelt.
Huey arrived in Washington in January 1932. As the Great Depression was getting worse, he made passionate speeches in the Senate charging a few powerful families for hoarding the nation's wealth. Noting that 95% of the nation's wealth was held by 15% of the people, Huey urged Congress to address the inequality that he believed to be the source of all the suffering.
Huey Long was suited to run for president in the 1936 election against Franklin Delano Roosevelt. He had rose to national prominence with his Share Our Wealth program, which swept the nation as the Great Depression deepened. Meanwhile, FDR used some of Huey's ideas in order to steal Long's thunder, also while trying to discredit him.
In 1935, Huey's Share Our Wealth Society had over 7.5 members, 7,000 clubs across the country. Long's Senate office was overflooded with thousands of letters daily, prompting him to hire 32 typists who worked around the clock to respond to fan mail. Long became the nation's third most photographed.
According to Democratic National Committee Chairman James Fairley, Huey was polling up to 6 million popular votes and his appeal was nationwide.
By 1935, tensions were high in Louisiana as rumors of multiple plots to assassinate Huey Long was spread around the capital. Huey's constellation of personal power led to talk of armed insurrection by his enemies. On September 8th, Huey was shot by the relative of a political enemy in the state capital, and he died 2 days later at age 42. News of Huey's death made headlines around the world, and an estimated 200,000 mourners went to Baton Rouge to pay their respects.
On to the governorship in 1932, Huey continued to exercise de facto control of state government and made frequent trips to Baton Rouge. In January 1935, 200 armed square dealers stormed the East Baton Rouge Parish Courthouse, prompting Governor Allen to call out to the National Guard and declare martial law.
On September 8th, Huey was in the state capitol in Baton Rouge for a special session of the Louisiana legislature, pushing through a number of bills, including a measure to his opponent, Judge Benjamin Pavey, out of his job. According to the generally accepted version of events, Pavey's son-in-law, Dr. Carl West, approached Huey in a corridor and shot him at close range in the abdomen. Huey's bodyguards immediately opened fire on West as Huey went to safety.
Huey was rushed to a nearby hospital where emergency surgery failed to stop internal bleeding. Huey died 2 days later on September 10, 1935, 11 days after his 42nd birthday. His last words were, "God, don't let me die, I have so much to do."